He said I would ruin the photographs, like my presence would leave a stain on their perfect day. I didn't even ask why. I just stood there in the kitchen, the phone still warm against my cheek, the silence between us more bitter than any insult he could have spoken aloud. It was our wedding anniversary, 47 years. The first since Harold passed. And my son called to say they didn't want me there. Not just for the party. For any of it. You'll understand, he said. It's not personal. It's just easier. Easier for whom? I wanted to ask. But I didn't. I thanked him, God help me, and hung up. The room was dim, just the yellow flicker from the stove clock bouncing off the floor tiles. I looked at the space above the mantel, where our wedding photo used to hang. I'd packed it away after Harold's funeral. I told myself it was to keep it safe. But truthfully, it hurt too much to see joy suspended like that, forever unreachable. I made a cup of tea I didn't drink. My hands trembled too much to hold it. So I sat at the table, tracing the grain of the wood, and tried to remember the last time I'd been included in anything that mattered. That night, I took out the powder blue dress I wore to Daniel's graduation. The hem had faded, and a thread at the neckline was unraveling. I ironed it anyway. In the morning, I pinned Harold's photo inside my purse, just behind the zipper, and I went. I didn't ring the bell. I walked around the back, the way I used to when Daniel was little, and I'd come to babysit. The garden was quiet, except for the faint music spilling from open windows. Too cheerful, too polished. That's where I saw her. A girl, maybe 11, maybe 12, sitting cross-legged on the stone bench under the plum tree. She looked like she was waiting for someone who'd forgotten her. She had a plate in her lap but wasn't eating, just breaking a roll into soft white crumbs and letting them fall like snow. Our eyes met, and she straightened. Then she stood up, too quickly, and I saw the nerves in her posture. The half-step forward. The pause. "Your grandma, right?" she asked. The words caught me off guard. I think so, I said, because I honestly didn't know anymore. She smiled, relieved. "I saw your picture on Mom's bookshelf." She looked at me like I'd stepped out of one of her stories. "You're prettier in person." No one had called me that in years. I sat beside her, knees protesting. The bench was cold. "What's your name?" I asked. "Eliza," she said. "I'm sort of in the middle. Like not from the first marriage, not really from the second. But I belong. I think." She said it without bitterness, just fact. Like reading a label. I watched as she picked at her roll again, then handed half to me without asking. A peace offering from a child who knew exactly what it felt like to be on the edge of things. Inside, I heard a toast being made, glasses clinking, voices raised. But none of them called me in. Still I stayed. I looked around the garden, neatly kept, painfully intentional. Everything trimmed to precision, like even the roses had to know their place. The plum tree, though it leaned slightly, imperfect. I liked that. "Does your father know I'm here?" I asked her quietly. She looked down. "I think he saw you from the window. But he didn't come out." I nodded. My fingers tightened around the photo in my purse. A door slid open. Laughter spilled out. A few guests wandered into the garden, throwing me glances that hovered too long or not at all. Daniel didn't come. I excused myself gently, and Eliza didn't stop me. But she touched my hand as I stood. Light. Soft. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. I didn't cry until I was 3 blocks away. When I got home, I set the kettle on, even though I knew I wouldn't drink it. I turned on the lamp in the living room and stared again at that empty space above the mantel. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I brought out the box with our wedding photo and set it back where it belonged. The woman in the picture stared back at me with so much certainty in her eyes. It almost broke me. I'd gone. I wasn't wanted, but I'd gone. And in that space between what was said and what wasn't, A girl with trembling hands had called me grandma. It wasn't enough to fix anything, but it was enough to wake something. I sat down and began to write, just a short letter. To her. Eliza. I didn't know where it would lead, but I knew I had to follow it. The night deepened around me, and the silence changed. Not gone, but no longer something to fear. Tomorrow, I would find out what else had been hidden in the corners of this family. Tomorrow, I would ask the questions no one ever dared answer. She said I looked kind. Not beautiful, not young, not even familiar, just kind. It stayed with me through the night, long after the silence of that garden folded back into my empty house. I replayed her words as I unpinned Harold's photo from my purse and placed it on the nightstand. Her voice, soft and sure, echoed louder than anything said at the celebration inside. Eliza. I didn't sleep. I sat in bed with a stack of old calendars and holiday cards on my lap, searching for the line, the moment where I was erased from the family story. The last card from Daniel was 6 years ago. Just a generic happy holidays, with no personal note, just their names printed in gold. Daniel, Marissa, and Liam. No mention of Eliza. No photo. Nothing that would tell me there was another child in his life. I found old reminders on a grocery list tucked between the pages. Cinnamon for Harold's coffee, ribbon for Liam's birthday gift. All those ordinary things I used to remember without trying. All gone now. I opened Harold's desk drawer next. He kept old pens and small yellowing notepads, some filled with phone numbers and scribbled measurements for curtain rods. One page caught my eye, folded carefully, not like the others. Don't let silence win. 4 words. No date except the year, 2019. For years before he died. His handwriting was tired but deliberate. I pressed the note flat with my palm, unsure if it was something he meant for me, or something he wrote for himself. But either way, it felt like a small breath handed forward in time. I carried it to the kitchen and placed it next to the kettle. Then I sat and watched the steam rise until it vanished, disappearing like everything else that once felt close. Around noon, I took out a piece of my linen stationery, the kind I used to write thank you notes on. It smelled faintly of cedar. I hadn't used it since Harold's passing. I began slowly. Dear Eliza. I told her I was glad we met, that I hadn't expected to see anyone that day, least of all someone who would call me grandma like it wasn't strange or uncomfortable. I told her I liked the plum tree, and the way she sat there with quiet eyes, like she was waiting for something to bloom. I didn't say anything about Daniel. Not yet. I didn't want to tangle her into the grown-up disappointments. I still hadn't made sense of myself. I signed it simply, Love, Margaret. It felt too intimate to send and too important not to, so I folded it neatly and slid it into an envelope, placing it on the hallway table. For now, I let it rest there, like a seed that hadn't found its soil yet. Later that afternoon, I stood at the kitchen sink peeling carrots for no one, just for the rhythm of it. My hands moved on their own, remembering the feel of repetition, of preparing food for family. Outside the window, the neighbor's wind chimes tinkled faintly. The breeze tugged gently at the curtains. I thought again of Eliza's eyes, the calm sadness behind them, how she gave half her role to a stranger she'd only known through a photograph. And something else came back, quick, like a forgotten name suddenly remembered. Years ago, Daniel had called in the middle of the night. He was drunk or tired or both. He was talking fast, saying he'd ended things with someone, that he was making changes, that life was too loud. I barely understood it then, thought it was just one of those phases 20-somethings go through. But maybe it was Laura. Maybe Eliza. I had forgotten. Or maybe I hadn't wanted to remember. The thing that stung the most wasn't that I hadn't known Eliza. It was that no one thought I should know. That my place in their life was now so far outside the fence, I wasn't even told there was a gate. But Eliza had opened something. Not wide, Not easy. Just enough to step through. That night, I read Harold's note again. Then I tucked it into the front pocket of my coat, just in case I needed courage the next time I left the house. The silence in the kitchen didn't feel so sharp now. Not gone, but softer. The kind of quiet that comes before someone says something they mean. I didn't know if Eliza would ever write back. But I knew I had already begun listening again. And that would have to be enough for now. I almost threw it away. It came 2 days after the garden. A thick manila envelope, no return address, no markings except my name in a mechanical black font. Like junk mail pretending to be important. I held it over the trash can for a breath too long before something in the weight of it stopped me. There was no note. Just the cold paper whisper of something legal. I slid my finger beneath the seal and pulled out a copy of Harold's will. I sat down slowly, the kind of slow you use when you're bracing for something that might not hurt, but probably will. At first, it was ordinary. He named me as executor. He left the house to me. The bank accounts. His war medals. Nothing I didn't already know. But then on the third page, nestled between paragraphs of estate division and burial wishes, was a name. Laura McCain. I stared at it for a long time, waiting for it to fade or clarify, as if the ink itself might confess a mistake. But it was there, black and deliberate. Harold had left Laura something, a provision of support, it said. A trust. I hadn't heard that name in years. She was Daniel's ex, the one before Marissa. Polite, quiet. I think she used to work at the pharmacy. They were engaged briefly. I never knew why it ended. She simply stopped coming around. Why would Harold leave her anything? My stomach turned slowly. I turned to the last page. The signature. The date, 7 months before he died. He'd never told me. Not once. I picked up the phone and dialed the number at the bottom of the document. It rang 5 times before a young man answered with a rehearsed politeness. Law Office of Miles and Teague. I gave my name. Told him I'd received a copy of my husband's will. Asked, quietly, why no one had informed me earlier. He hesitated. I see. That will was filed privately, by Mr. Langford himself. He requested no notifications at the time. I'm sorry you weren't made aware? No, I said softly. I wasn't. Another pause. That's unusual. He was quite clear about keeping the contents confidential. I didn't ask anything else. I thanked him and hung up. The room was still. I pulled the wedding photo from the mantel and set it down on the table. Looked into Harold's young eyes. The ones that had once made promises across an altar and laughed across a kitchen table while flour dusted his eyebrows. I couldn't imagine him being cruel. But secrecy isn't always loud. Sometimes it just lingers behind the things we never say. I touched the edge of the frame, tracing the line between his tuxedo and the background blur. Was it pity? Regret? Was Laura in trouble? Or was it guilt? I'd lived with that man for nearly 5 decades. And yet, in death he had secrets. It wasn't the money. It was what it meant. That he trusted someone else with something he couldn't, or wouldn't, say to me. I went to my writing desk. It had dust along the edges and a drawer that stuck on the left side. I hadn't used it since before Harold passed. I pulled out a fresh page from the old ivory stationery set I used to save for birthdays and holidays. But I didn't write to Eliza. This time, I wrote to someone else. Dear Margaret, I began. That's how Harold used to write me notes. Not honey or love, just my name, like it was enough to hold the whole sentence. I wrote about the girl I was, about the first time I sewed a button onto his shirt, the time I burned the Thanksgiving rolls, and we both ate them anyway, laughing with butter in our teeth. I wrote about the silence that had grown between me and Daniel, how it crept in slowly, like ivy on an old wall. I wrote about the hurt, not like a complaint, but like a witness. And I wrote about Eliza, how she said I looked kind, By the end, I didn't feel better. But I felt less small. Like I had taken up space again. Even just on a page. I folded the letter and slipped it into an envelope, sealing it with my thumb pressed firm against the glue. Then I slid it into the desk drawer with the others. Letters that were never meant to be sent, only remembered. Outside, the light had shifted. Long shadows stretched across the porch like fingers reaching for something just out of view. I didn't know what Harold had meant by including Laura. But I knew now that the cracks weren't just in my family. They were in my memory of what we were. And maybe they'd always been there. I just hadn't looked close enough. Tomorrow I would. Laura McCain. Her name echoed with the soft finality of something I'd boxed away and labeled over. Daniel never said much when it ended. Just that it wasn't working, and by then he was already seeing Marissa. I hadn't questioned it. Laura had always seemed gentle, quiet in a way that felt like effort, like she was holding something back. But she was kind to me, polite in that tender, uncertain way of women who still feel they must earn their place. And then she was gone. I sat with the name again after reading Harold's will. It gnawed at the quiet. Why would he leave anything to her? After so long. After she'd disappeared from our lives entirely. I opened the laptop and searched her name, fingers stiff and unsure. I never liked looking into people's lives through a screen. It felt like reading a letter you weren't meant to find. The first profile that came up was hers. A private account. But the banner image was public, cropped and filtered. A hospital bracelet looped around a newborn's ankle, the baby's foot resting gently against a woman's fingers. The timestamp said 2017. My heart paused. I leaned in. The skin around the wristband was soft and pink, the hospital tag half visible. I squinted. McCain, Elle. And beneath that, infant female. I closed the screen, then opened it again. I started typing. Y Laura. I'm not sure if you remember me, but... Delete. You don't know me, but I believe we're connected by more than misunderstanding. I stared at it for a long time. It felt clumsy. It felt true. I clicked send. And then I waited. 2 days passed. I checked the inbox more than I cared to admit, each time certain it would remain empty. But on the third morning, her name was there. I remember you. Yes, I think we should talk. 7 words. And my whole chest exhaled something I hadn't known I was holding. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same place I used to shell peas beside Harold and fold Daniel's report cards into envelopes. The table was scratched now. There was a long, pale groove from when I dropped the blender blade, and another from Harold's coffee mug, the one that leaked at the rim. I reached across and smoothed the paper placemat with my palm, grounding myself. What did she want to say? What would I say? I hadn't seen her in nearly a decade. She'd been 24, I think, the last time she stepped through my door. Her hair was always in a braid, her voice careful. I remember she used to bring Daniel soup when he was sick, leave notes on sticky pads by the fridge. She had vanished too neatly. But if that baby, her baby, had anything to do with Harold or Daniel, or me, then maybe she hadn't disappeared. Maybe she'd just been pushed away, tucked somewhere quiet by the people who didn't want to look. I stood and opened the hallway closet, pulled out a scarf I hadn't worn in years. Pale blue wool. It smelled faintly of cedar and lavender from the sachets I kept tucked on the shelf. I wrapped it around my neck and glanced at the clock. It was time to meet the woman whose name had waited, silently, in the folds of my family. Time to learn what Harold never told me. Time to ask the questions my son had always dodged. Outside, the wind tugged at the porch swing, and for once, I let it rock. The coffee shop was small, one of those places that smelled like cinnamon and memory. Mismatched chairs, brick walls, a chalkboard menu. I arrived 5 minutes late on purpose. I didn't want to be the one waiting, rehearsing questions I wasn't sure I had the right to ask. She was already there. Laura McCain. She stood when she saw me, her coat draped neatly over the back of the chair, both hands wrapped around a ceramic mug. Nervous but not fragile. Her eyes were older now, sharper, but still carried the weight of something unfinished. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. "Of course." We sat. I ordered tea, something mild, something warm, and then the silence stretched for a moment. "I wasn't sure how to begin," she said. "But I promised myself, if you ever reached out, I wouldn't lie." I folded my hands on the table. "I appreciate that." She took a breath. Not shallow, not deep. Just steadying. "My daughter's name is Iris." The name hung in the air. "She's 8. She'll be 9 in October." I blinked. My mouth stayed closed. My thoughts didn't. 9 in October. That would mean. "She's Daniel's," she said quietly. "He knows. He's always known." I let out a sound. Part sigh, part ache. I told him when I found out. We were already unraveling. He said he needed time. Then he met Marissa, and he never told anyone. I looked down at my tea. The steam was fading, forgotten. "He never told me," I murmured. "Not a word." "I believe you," she said. And I did believe her. She wasn't here for a fight. Her eyes weren't angry. Just tired. She reached into her bag, careful, like she was handing me something sacred. And maybe she was. A small photograph, edges worn. A little girl with white eyes. Dark lashes. A crooked front tooth. My husband's eyes. My chin. The recognition wasn't gentle. It hit like a bell. Quiet but impossible to ignore. "She looks like him," I said almost to myself. "She looks like you," Laura replied. I stared. I couldn't stop. "She's never asked much," Laura said. "I think she senses the missing pieces, but she doesn't push. I've tried to protect her from disappointment." I looked up. "You're not here for money." "No," she smiled, sad but certain. "Just truth." That word again. Truth. The kind that doesn't owe anything. The kind that burns quietly. "Does she know about me?" I asked. Laura hesitated. Her fingers touched the edge of the photograph like she needed to hold it down. "Not yet." "Not yet." I nodded. Slowly. "She should," I said. "Someday." Laura looked at me. Really looked. Like she wasn't expecting that answer, but was relieved to hear it. "I think she'd like you," she said. "She's curious. Kind. A little stubborn." "Well," I smiled faintly. "That runs in the blood." We sat there for a long while. No rush. No urgency. Just two women, connected by a man who had disappeared into silence and a child who had grown in its shadow. "I used to imagine this meeting," Laura said softly. "But in every version it went worse." "I never imagined it at all," I said. "I didn't know there was anything to imagine." Another pause. This one gentler. "Iris draws," Laura said suddenly. "All the time. Animals, people, trees with roots like hands. She says she likes imagining what can't be seen." "That's beautiful." "She gets it from him, I think. Daniel used to draw in the margins of everything." I smiled. I remembered that. Sketches of spaceships, comic book heroes, once even a doodle of me as a wizard on the grocery list. "Would you like to meet her?" The question was quiet, but not tentative. I didn't answer right away. Not because I doubted, but because it had to be the right kind of yes. "Yes," I said finally. "But only if, when you think it's right." Laura exhaled. A softness came over her face. "I'll talk to her." She stood. I did too. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For telling me. For not disappearing." She nodded. "Truth has to live somewhere," she said. "Might as well be here." As she turned to leave, she paused. "She has his laugh too," she said. "The kind that fills a room, even if it's just her and a stuffed animal. I watched her go, the bell above the cafe door ringing softly behind her. I looked down at the photograph one more time, and for the first time in years, I felt something new blooming under the silence. A name. Iris. I asked to meet him somewhere neutral. Somewhere he couldn't slam a door or retreat to another room. So we met at his office. Late evening. The lights outside low. The world quieting into dusk. He looked surprised to see me, though he'd agreed to the meeting. Maybe he thought I wouldn't come. Maybe he hoped I wouldn't. "Everything okay?" he asked, standing beside his desk, still in his blazer, as if the fabric could hold him together. "I think you know why I'm here," I said gently. He nodded barely, then gestured to the chair opposite his. We sat. I didn't take out any papers. No photographs. I didn't bring Laura's message or Iris's name. I brought only what he had refused to give me. Silence. It filled the room until I broke it. She reached out to me. He blinked, but not with surprise, only with the weariness of someone hoping a secret would stay buried. "Laura." He shifted, looked down at his desk. "She should have left it alone." "That's not for you to decide anymore," I said quietly. He looked up. A flicker of something crossed his face. Guilt? No. Guilt implies he didn't expect this to hurt anyone. This was something else. "Whatever she told you," he began, "it's not that simple." "It rarely is." "She's unstable," he said quickly. Too quickly. "She's always been difficult." I let him say it. I let the room hold the weight of it before I replied. "She's raising your daughter." He froze. Just for a second. His jaw clenched. His hands balled into loose fists against the desk. "I had my reasons," he said, almost like an apology. "No," I said gently. "You had a child." The word stilled him. "You had a daughter," I continued, "and a chance to tell me I had a granddaughter. And you said nothing." He turned his head, stared past me, at the wall, or the window, or the past, wherever the easy answer might be hiding. "I didn't want to lose everything," he whispered. "I didn't know how to keep it all." I felt something in me break, not with rage but with mourning. "You don't lose everything by telling the truth," I said. "You lose it by hiding it." He said nothing. "I'm not here to shame you," I added. "I'm here because I deserve to know. And she deserves to be known." He flinched, just barely. "She doesn't even know who I am," he said bitterly. "That's Laura's choice." "You made your choice first," I said. "She's just living in the echo of it." The room went silent again. Only this time it wasn't the quiet of distance. It was the hush after something real has been spoken. "I loved her," he said suddenly. "Did you know that? Laura. Before it all got messy. Before I ran." "I believe you," I said. And I did. "But love doesn't fix everything, does it?" he asked. "No," I said. "But truth gives it a chance." He rubbed his temples. "What do you want me to do?" "That's not for me to decide." I stood slowly. "But I'm going to find her. I'm going to know her. And one day, I hope she'll know me too." He looked at me then, really looked. Not with anger. Not with fear. With something small and aching. Like he'd just realized how many chances had slipped through his fingers. "You're not going to tell anyone else?" "I'm not here to punish you, Daniel," I said. "I'm here because silence has already done enough damage." I gathered my coat. My bag. "I don't expect you to call me," I said at the door. "Not anytime soon." He didn't argue. He didn't offer to walk me out. As I stepped into the elevator, I saw my reflection in the doors, older, yes, but no longer waiting. I knew two things as I drove home. One, my son wouldn't reach for me again, not until the cost of silence outweighed the comfort of hiding. Two, I wouldn't wait for him. Because there's a girl out there with my husband's eyes and my chin. And if I don't find her now, silence will win again. The envelope is pale blue, the kind meant for birthday cards or thank you notes, not for changing someone's day. The handwriting on the front is careful. Rounded letters, a bit slanted, like she took her time. Eliza. I hold it for a moment before opening it. Just hold it. There's something sacred in being written to. In this world of taps and clicks and vanishing screens, a letter is a kind of miracle. I slide my finger under the flap. Inside, a single sheet of paper, lined, folded once. She begins simply, "Dear Grandma." I blink. Let the word settle in me. I haven't been called that in years. Not really. Not like this. I hope this is okay. I found your letter. The one on the bench. I didn't mean to be nosy, but the envelope said my name and I don't know. I read it. I smile. I left it there on purpose, Eliza. She goes on. I read it twice. The first time kind of fast, like I was afraid of it. The second time slower. Then I read it out loud, even though no one was around. I liked how it sounded that way. Like someone was talking to me. Not just at me. The tears come quiet. Not heavy or sharp, just a steady soft. No one talks much in our house. Not really. Everyone's busy. Or on their phones. Or mad. Your letter made me feel like someone saw me. Even the parts one don't say out loud. She is 12. Maybe 13. Old enough to feel invisible, and too young to know that it isn't her fault. I don't know what happened between you and Mom and Dad. They don't talk about it. But I'd like to visit you sometime. If that's okay. I press the page to my chest. Not sadness. Not regret. Just relief. I liked your handwriting, she adds, a PS at the bottom. It made the words feel like they meant more. I laugh through my tears. I look over at the framed photo on the windowsill. Her baby face, round and soft, all cheeks and light. It's dusty. Forgotten. But now she's real again. Not a memory. A person. A voice. I take out my paper and pen. The nice set. The one I haven't touched in a while. And I begin a reply. Not perfect. Not profound. Just honest. Dear Eliza. I've waited so long to hear from you. I didn't even know I was waiting. But now I think I was. I tell her about the flowers just starting to bloom in my garden. The way the sun hits the kitchen table at 4 o'clock. I tell her I would love nothing more than to have her visit. That I'll make cinnamon toast if she still likes it. That I have a cozy blanket waiting if she gets cold. I do not mention her parents. I do not mention the silences. This is between us. 2 granddaughters. One whose eyes I saw in a photograph I had to be handed by a stranger. And now one reaching toward me, on her own. The past cannot be rewritten. But maybe the story isn't finished yet. I fold my letter. I tuck it into an envelope that matches hers. And as I seal it, I whisper thank you, not to anyone in particular, but to the quiet space between us, now bridged by paper and truth. The house is smaller than I expected. Yellow siding, chipping slightly at the corners, a wreath on the door even though it's not a holiday. It feels lived in. The kind of place where people sit at the kitchen table long after the meal is done. I park across the street and sit for a moment. My hands are sweating, even though the air is cool. In the passenger seat, a tote bag with coloring books, a fresh box of crayons, and a tin of cookies I baked this morning. The sugar kind, dusted with cinnamon, my husband's favorite. I'm not sure what a 7-year-old likes these days. But cookies and crayons never went out of style in my day. Laura opens the door before I even knock. She's in the living room, she says softly. She's excited. Just nervous. I nod. So am I. We both smile, thin, uncertain, and I step inside. The smell is soft and warm. like apples and something floral I can't name. Then I see her, sitting cross-legged on the carpet, knees tucked beneath a frilly pink skirt, a stack of paper beside her. She looks up as I enter, big brown eyes wide. Her face is familiar. Too familiar. It's the eyes. My husband's. And the mouth, my mouth curved with careful curiosity. She doesn't move. Neither do I. Hi, I say gently, bending down to her level. I'm well, I brought cookies. She glances at Laura, who gives a small nod. What kind? Sugar with cinnamon. That's not the worst, she says and picks one out of the tin. I laugh. She eats it slowly, licking the sugar off her lips. I take out the coloring books next, and she leans forward as if her body just remembered to be excited. This one has dinosaurs. This one's mermaids. And this one's just shapes, if you want to make them all your own. She grabs the mermaids, flipping through quickly, then selects a green crayon, forest green I notice, and begins to color without a word. I sit beside her on the floor, letting the moment breathe. We stay that way for a while. No questions. No pressure. Just the quiet rhythm of a crayon moving across paper, and the occasional crunch of a cookie. Laura watches from the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a mug she doesn't drink from. After maybe 20 minutes, Lily finally speaks. Are you like a grandma or just someone who likes cookies? I smile. Maybe both. She doesn't look up. Just keeps coloring. I never had one. A grandma. You have one now if you want. She looks at me then. Really looks. You look like me, she says. I nod. I see that too. She hands me a crayon, orange, and gestures toward the page. I'm doing the tail, she says. You can do the hair. We color side by side. Carefully. She asks if I know what narwhals are. I say I've heard of them, but never met one personally. She informs me they're real and magical and possibly aliens. I tell her I believe her. We talk about favorite animals, hers, manatees, and least favorite vegetables, mine turnips, hers, peas, and which is better, purple or glitter purple. She tells me her teacher says she talks too much, but only when she's thinking. I tell her that's the best time to talk. She grins at that. Halfway through the second page she says, Can I call you Miss Granny? Just 'cause I don't know what else yet. I feel my heart stretch. Miss Granny sounds just right. She leans her shoulder against mine as she colors. The trust of it nearly undoes me. Laura steps into the doorway, eyes glassy. She doesn't interrupt. She just watches. There's something unspoken between us. Something fragile and forgiving. Because this isn't just about Lily. It's about the broken places in all of us. The letters we didn't send. The truths we buried. It's about rewriting endings. And maybe even beginnings. When it's time to go, Lily hugs me with both arms around my waist. You can come back, she says. Next time bring glitter pens. I will. I promise. With extra sparkle. Laura walks me to the door. She hasn't taken to anyone that quickly, she whispers. Not even me some days. She's extraordinary, I say. She is. We stand in silence for a beat. Then I add, you did a good job. With her. Laura's eyes well up. Thank you for coming. I nod and step outside. The chill of the afternoon brushing my cheeks. Across the street, I sit in my car again. My hands still trembling, but this time from something else. Joy. Grief. Something in between. I don't know what happens next. But I know I'll be back. I hadn't meant to look again. But some nights, the ache is louder than sleep. I sit at the kitchen table with my laptop. The same one I've had for years. Keys worn smooth. Fingerprints smudging the screen. I type her name into the search bar, my son's wife. Still public. Still curated. Her anniversary post comes up first. 20 years. A caption that says through every season, followed by 3 heart emojis. I click. The photos load slowly one by one. There's the venue. White tents strung with lights, linen napkins folded into swans. There's the cake, 3 tiers, dusted with edible gold. There's my son, in his best suit, arms wrapped around a woman he doesn't quite look at. Everyone is smiling. Glass flutes raised mid-toast. Laughter caught mid-air. Children caught mid-run. Perfection. Except, about halfway through I see it. A photo I don't remember anyone taking. I'm in the corner of the frame, seated on a bench. My shoulders slightly hunched. Eliza is next to me, her legs swinging, her hand in mine. I'm holding a photograph. The old one, my wedding day. The one I'd folded into my purse that morning like a talisman. I must have taken it out to show her. Eliza is looking up at me. I'm smiling. Not for the camera. Not for anyone watching. Just smiling. I pause. It's not a good photo. Not the kind they'd print on canvas or set in silver. I'm not the focus. The colors are too dark. The flash too dim. But I stare at it. Because in that moment, nothing was posed. It wasn't for show. And somehow, it holds more truth than all the rest combined. I save it. Then print it. The old printer groans to life, coughing out the image on cheap paper. I hold it carefully like something sacred. It's not just a photo. It's proof. Proof that something real happened that day, amid all the staging. No one else will notice. They'll skip past it, too blurry, too dull. But I see what matters. I see Eliza, the way her small fingers fit around mine like puzzle pieces. I see my own face, softened in a way I hadn't recognized in years. I see connection. And suddenly, I remember the seeds I planted that day. Not with words, but with presence. The letter I left. The tears Eliza didn't hide. The pause in my son's face when he saw me holding that old picture. Those things didn't make it into the album. But I was there. And so were they. I taped the photo on the fridge. Crooked, a little wrinkled. But honest. It's not a shrine. Just a reminder. Because I know what that picture didn't show. It didn't show Lily coloring a mermaid tail green while I filled in the hair. It didn't show her calling me Miss Granny. It didn't show Laura standing in the kitchen, tears balanced in the corners of her eyes. It didn't show Eliza's letter, folded carefully, creased with hope. It didn't show all the moments since. The phone call from Lily asking if squirrels hibernate. They don't, not really. The email Eliza sent with a poem she wrote about rain. The silence from my son, still present like fog. But that's the thing about photos. They're only fragments. Little squares of time pretending to tell the whole story. The truth lives in between. In the spaces where no one was watching. Where no one was posing. Where no one said smile. That anniversary photo? It'll live online. Get likes. Maybe be framed on a wall. But it won't say what came after. It won't say that the woman in the corner, the one with the photo in her lap and a granddaughter by her side, finally began to bloom again. That woman was me. And I'm still blooming. Quietly. Resiliently. Out of season. But real. The gate creaks the same way it did the last time I came. But today the sound feels different. Hopeful almost. Eliza is already there, waiting. Her hair's pulled back into a loose braid. A smudge of soil on her cheek like war paint. Hi, she says softly, but it's not the shy hello from before. It's steadier. A word with weight. Her mother sits on the porch swing, one leg crossed over the other, a paperback open but unread in her lap. She nods at me, not a smile, not a frown. Just a quiet acknowledgement. The space between us doesn't feel like a wall anymore. More like a bridge we're slowly building, plank by plank. I step into the yard. The same hydrangeas, faded at the edges. The same bird bath, still chipped on the rim. But something's different. Me. And Eliza. We got lavender, she says, holding up a small tray of seedlings. I thought you'd like that. I crouched down beside her, knees popping in protest. You were right. We pick a spot near the back fence, where the sun lingers longest in the afternoons. The soil is dry, cracked in places, but eager beneath the surface. Eliza hands me a trowel. Hers is already in motion, carving out a little nest in the earth. I read that lavender keeps bugs away, she says. But mostly I just like how it smells. She pauses, then adds, smells like peace. I nod. It does. We dig without hurry. The silence between us isn't awkward or heavy. It feels intentional, like a pause in music. Occasionally, our hands brush. Her fingers are cooler than mine, more nimble. She works with care, gentle but firm, as if the roots are something precious. They are. We plant 6 lavender sprigs in a gentle arc, pressing the earth back around them, packing it firm but not tight. When we finish, she sits back on her heels and wipes her forehead with the back of her hand. It'll take a while, she says, glancing at the plants. But I think they'll grow. I smile. I think so too. She looks at me for a long moment, eyes searching mine like she's looking for something she doesn't quite have words for yet. Then she leans her head against my shoulder. Just for a breath. It's enough. From the porch, her mother watches. I meet her eyes, and this time, she doesn't look away. No one says the obvious thing. That my son is not here. His absence isn't an elephant in the room. It's a fact of weather. Like clouds or wind. Something we've learned to work around. I don't ask where he is. I don't need to. This visit isn't about him. It's about lavender. About elbows in the dirt. About a girl learning what peace smells like. We wash up at the garden hose, water splashing onto our shoes. Eliza laughs when I accidentally spray my pant leg, and for a moment, I'm laughing too. Not the polite kind. The real kind. The kind that bubbles up from a place newly awakened. As I get ready to leave, Eliza walks me back to the gate. Will you come again, she asks. I brush a leaf from her shoulder. Whenever you want. She hesitates, then takes my hand and presses something into it. A small sprig of lavender she clipped while I wasn't looking. For your kitchen, she says. So it smells like here. I don't trust myself to speak. I nod, tuck it gently into my purse like a secret. And then as I step through the gate, I turn back just once. Eliza is already kneeling by the plants again, adjusting a stem, patting the dirt with 2 fingers. Lavender. Peace. A garden growing not just flowers, but possibility. And maybe, if we're patient, something even more. I used to write in my journal only when grief threatened to spill over. Quiet little entries scrawled in the corners of sorrow. Now I write because I want to remember. I write about Eliza's laugh when she read her first poem aloud to me. Cheeks flushed pink. Voice trembling like a kite string in wind. I write about Lily's toothy grin when I showed up with a new box of sidewalk chalk. And she drew a rainbow taller than herself on the front walk. I write about Laura, too. How she made space for me at her kitchen table without asking me to be anyone other than who I am. Someone learning. We are not a traditional family. We don't share holidays yet, or last names. There are no formal pictures framed on mantels. But we share something else. A choice. And I've come to believe that's more powerful than biology. Because this family, we're not born from the same branch. We're vines growing toward the same light. I don't speak to my son anymore. He hasn't called, hasn't written. After our meeting, there was silence. Then the seasons turned. I sent a birthday card in March. No reply. A Mother's Day note in May. Unopened. A Christmas card in December. Returned to sender. At first, each silence felt like a new bruise. But eventually I stopped hoping for replies. Not because I stopped loving him, but because I started loving myself more. Some things you must let go so your arms are free to carry what matters. Now I spend my weekends in borrowed kitchens, backyard gardens, and front porch swings. Laura teaches me how to make tea just the way Lily likes it. Too much honey, not enough steeping. Eliza reads me her journal entries and blushes when I say her words have weight. Sometimes we play Scrabble. Sometimes we just sit and listen to the wind rattle the window panes. And in those quiet hours, I feel it. I'm building something. Not legacy in the traditional sense. Not wealth passed down or a surname etched in granite. But legacy in the way Eliza smiles a little wider now. In the way Lily runs toward me without hesitation. In the way Laura hands me her grandmother's recipe for lemon bread like a secret pass between hearts. That's the legacy I never saw coming. I write about it in ink that doesn't smudge from tears. I write. Legacy isn't blood alone. Sometimes it's the stories we choose to tell, the hands we choose to hold, the forgiveness we learn to carry, even for ourselves. Sometimes I wonder if my son will ever come around. But I don't build my days around that wondering anymore. If he returns, I will open the door. I'll set a place at the table. I'll listen. But I won't wait in the hallway forever. There is life happening now, and I don't want to miss it. Lily asked me once, "Do grandmas always know everything?" I told her, "Only the good ones pretend to." She giggled, then asked how long it takes to become a good one. I said, "Maybe a lifetime. Maybe 2 coloring books and some cookies." She nodded solemnly and whispered, "You're almost there." I keep that moment close, like a locket in the chest of my memory. Some people inherit heirlooms. I inherit small moments wrapped in laughter. Sometimes, I think back to the woman I was before all this. Lonely, invisible, shrinking. She wouldn't recognize me now. Not because everything's perfect, but because I've grown comfortable in imperfection. I've made peace with the broken pieces. I've planted new things, and they are blooming. Somewhere, a man I raised is walking through life pretending silence is strength. Maybe someday he'll learn otherwise. Maybe he won't. Either way, I am no longer waiting for his approval to feel whole. I have children who call me Miss Granny. I have daughters not by birth, but by choice. I have stories worth writing, and days worth living. And I have lavender growing in a garden I helped dig. Roots deepening, season by season. Legacy, I've learned, isn't what you leave behind when you die. It's what you give while you're still here. And I'm still here. The lavender wasn't supposed to bloom this time of year. It had snowed the night before. Lightly, like the sky was exhaling something it had been holding in too long. I woke up early and walked out to the garden. The ground was still frosted, and most of the color in the world had been hushed. But there it was, just a few sprigs. Pale violet, a little defiant. Quietly stubborn. Eliza said it was a sign. "Maybe it's your garden telling you thank you," she said, brushing snow from her coat as she bent down to touch the leaves. I told her I didn't know flowers could be grateful. She smiled. "Then you haven't been around enough of them." We were standing in the cold, but we didn't feel it. That happens sometimes, when you're not alone. That evening, I hosted my first dinner in years. Not a holiday. Not a birthday. Just dinner. I used to think a dinner had to be for something. Now I know, gathering is reason enough. Eliza helped me set the table. Laura brought the casserole. Lily brought noise, energy, and a backpack full of markers. I lit a candle for my husband and placed it near the windowsill. I didn't say anything about it. I didn't have to. Laura noticed, though. Her eyes flicked to the flame and then to me. She gave a soft nod. A kind of acknowledgement that felt like a hand on the back. We passed bread. We clinked mismatched glasses. No one asked about the silences that filled the room now and then. They were the good kind. The pauses that let us breathe. At one point, Laura told a story about Lily's school project. A diorama of the solar system made entirely of glitter and empty yogurt containers. She said the sun didn't need to be the biggest, Laura laughed. Just the warmest. Eliza rolled her eyes. She's 7 and already a philosopher. I watched them speak to each other. Two women who hadn't grown up as family, but somehow became one. Later, as the dishes were cleared and the tea brewed, Lily tugged on my sleeve. I made something for you, she said. She pulled out a folded paper from her backpack. Construction paper. Crayon lines. Child hand perfection. It was a tree, broad, knotted, and perfect. Dozens of little hearts hung from its branches like fruit. At the bottom, in uneven lettering, she'd written one word. Family. I stared at it longer than I should have. My throat thickened, but I swallowed it down. It's our tree, she explained. You're part of it now. I wanted to tell her I didn't always feel like part of anything. I wanted to explain how long it had taken me to believe I still belonged somewhere. But I didn't. I just said, thank you, and hugged her so tightly she squeaked. Eliza watched me with those wide eyes that mirrored mine. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. I think she knew what that drawing did to me. We all stayed longer than we meant to. Laura gathered leftovers into containers. Eliza carried teacups to the sink. Lily curled up on the sofa with my old crocheted blanket, thumb in mouth, half asleep. I sat in the stillness, soaking it in. The years I spent alone feel far away now, but not forgotten. They sit behind me, quiet, not menacing. They taught me the weight of absence. That's how I know the fullness of this moment. It took years for me to learn that love, when it's real, doesn't arrive neatly. It's messy. It comes with bruises and baggage. It's built on forgiveness, not always given at once, and not always asked for out loud. Real love grows in crooked lines and unexpected places, like lavender in winter. I once believed family was defined by last names and shared blood. Now I believe it's shaped by choice, by attention, by time. We become family by showing up, by staying. That's what Eliza did when she read my letter. That's what Laura did when she opened her kitchen. That's what Lily did with her drawing. And maybe in my own stumbling way, that's what I did too, when I kept writing, kept reaching, kept hoping. There are still silences, still shadows, but they don't scare me now, because even shadows prove the presence of light. My son remains absent from these dinners, these drawings, these moments. I still send him letters now and then, less often, but gentler. Not pleading, just placing something in the mailbox and trusting it might land where it needs to. I don't write out of desperation anymore. I write out of peace. Sometimes, love doesn't answer the first time you call. Sometimes it knocks twice. And when you're finally ready to listen, really listen, it speaks in soft voices. In the quiet scrapes of forks on dinner plates. In the way a child tucks her hand into yours without asking. In the bloom of lavender where it shouldn't survive. As they left that night, Lily asleep on Laura's shoulder, Eliza paused at the door. She looked back at me. See you soon, she asked. I nodded. You always do. The candle on the windowsill flickered as they stepped into the cold. I let it burn a little longer, even after the house fell quiet again. And in that hush, I sat alone. But not lonely. Because now I carry their voices with me. Now I know what family feels like. Now I know I'm part of the tree. And somewhere beneath the snow, the lavender waits to bloom again.